All set, Mike? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of January 10th, 2018. We could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. We would typically make comments about things that are happening in town that are not on the agenda in our prerogative section, but I did want to start off the meeting this evening, and it seems appropriate that we've got fire department members here with us. I wanted to ask the administrator to speak just very briefly about two things that happened and what those outcomes were, if you would.
They usually say it comes in threes, so it's actually three. I just would like to commend Chief DeMello and the members of the fire department for their efforts during this cold weather spell. We've had 3 serious structure fires that they responded to, and without serious injury or accidents, they were able to save lives and property. So thank you to the members of the Bristol Fire Department. The string, 2 of them were in Bristol, one on Hoppersquash Road, a residential structure fire. We had one on Hope Street near Adelaide Avenue, which was an occupied home. And the third one, they were called for help in Portsmouth for another fully engulfed fire there. So it was very cold on all 3 occasions. Our volunteers stepped up, as they always have, and they did a great job for our community.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate what you do.
I also just had one thing in there, and that is the gas leak on High Street. On Sunday, the fire department was there for those of us who live in the area, going door to door to make sure that our houses didn't have gas in it or whatever. So
Yeah.
that was another big event. It was very cold that day.
I agree. I was one of those residents, and we greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, I was one of those residents too, and it was. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, the first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
The next is submission of minutes of previous meetings, and we'll just take items A1 and A2 first, please.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And item A3, these are sealed executive session minutes from November 29th. The first motion would be to unseal the minutes.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And if the council so chooses, to approve on a second motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item C1. This is Ordinance 2018-01. This is a first reading of this ordinance, which would provide for a volunteer firefighter EMS tax incentive program.
Motion that this constitutes the first reading?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item D1. This is the petition of Carolyn Almonte on behalf of Our Lady of Mount Carmel School PTG, requests council consideration for a bingo license for the bingo to be held on January 26th. You have a late item recommendation provided by the Town Administrator and Chief of Police that recommend approval.
Based on the recommendations, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item E1. This is a 6-month review of the dog kennel license that was issued to the Crate Escape Doggy Day Camp on 15 Gooding Avenue. You have a recommendation from the Town Administrator and Chief of Police to allow the license to continue.
Upon all the recommendations, grant the license to continue.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
You gotta love the name, Crate Escape. Like
Yeah, they
Crate
get 2 extra points for Crate Escape. Definitely.
Make sure they don't. Make sure they don't have the Great Escape. That's what it is.
All in favor?
That's true,
Aye.
Mary.
The next item is item F.
Oh, so I'm going to ask for anybody opposed? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is item F1. This is the second reading for adoption of the request of James F. Davis, 51 Bradford Street, Apartment 1, who would like to have an accessible parking space in front of his residence.
Motion that this constitutes a second reading?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next item is item F2, Roland St. Ange, 421 High Street, also requesting accessible parking space, and this is the second reading of this particular petition.
Motion that this constitutes a second reading?
Second.
There's a motion and a second for second reading and to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item in the public service appointment section, you have the Historic District Commission. There are one full member and with a term to expire in July of this year, and one alternate member with term to expire in July of next year. You have four applicants, Sonny Furtado of 148 High Street, Benjamin Cantor Stone of 218 State Street, Robin Smolka of 353 Hope Street, and Gerald Walsh of 33 Byfield Street, all seeking appointment.
Make a motion to appoint Gerald Walsh to full-time appointment, and as the alternate, Sonny Furtado.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is Juvenile Hearing Board, and the council just had one interview and wishes to reschedule this matter to give the second applicant an opportunity. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And did we have a date for that?
Our next scheduled meeting for the council is January 31st, if my memory is correct.
Correct.
If we could, if everyone is able and willing to do 6:30 as opposed to 7 as our normal time, and we can have a special meeting. Yeah. Thank you. And if not, Lou, an alternate is if we are potentially having a special meeting for the capital projects on February 7th, potentially 20 minutes before that or half an hour before that.
Okay. The next is the Christmas Festival Committee. You have an applicant in the person of Pam Pelletier of 105 Valhalla Drive in Portsmouth, and also the resignation of Owen E. Trainer III.
So, Lou, with this, Ms. Pelletier, we're pretty much consenting to submit the name to the committee itself on behalf of the council.
So we'll just refer it to the committee?
I
Make a
believe
motion
that's
to
what
that
we do
effect?
for the Christmas Festival Committee. Is
Okay.
that correct? In the
Yeah.
past, that's what we usually do.
Sometimes we've appointed, sometimes
Annually,
refer-
we do the whole
do them
list. but-
annually, yeah.
Yeah. And also, we would like to thank Mr. Trainer for his many years since its inception on this committee.
So there's a motion to refer back to the Christmas Festival Committee plus a letter of thanks.
Yes.
Letter of thanks, great. I'll
there a
second that motion.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Take a moment, as I always do, for this council to say thank you to the boards and commissions and the people who put their name in to be part of them. Congratulations to the new members and the people who did interview. If you're still interested, there's always opportunities out there, and we ask that you take a look at that. And if you're not sure what is available, reach out to our clerk or our deputy clerk, and we can give you a list of what's available and what's upcoming. We appreciate the time that our boards and commissions put in. You represent this council and ultimately the town of Bristol, and we say thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is item H1. This was continued from December 20th. This has to do with the textile recycling program.
Can I ask that you continue that for one more meeting till the 31st? I'm still trying to contact Kristen Brown, who is the executive behind this, and work out an agreement for you to review.
Motion to continue to the 31st meeting.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item I1. This is provided by the Bond Council. These are borrowing resolutions.
Julie?
So you have before you a resolution to borrow through the State Revolving Fund, the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. These are for the sewer department projects. You've seen this type of borrowing before. This will be to do some pump station improvements, as well as a Leahy and Soam sewer project and some drainage around the Fairview and sewer. And Steve can probably provide more details than I can on that if you have questions about the projects themselves.
Could you speak to us? Obviously, this directly affects our sewer fee. Can you tell us generally what this affects our sewer fee? I'm absolutely, I think this is very appropriate and we need to take this next step, but it's important to know.
When we were originally structuring this bond, we were looking at projects more in line of about $4.5 million. So we've pared this way back so that we can make it affordable through the sewer fee.
Excellent.
That said, we're going to be going into budget season very soon and discussing all of that and how we can make it work. We can get a little bit creative if we need to. We can push off the first year principal payment if it makes sense. So we're going to do our best to make it as affordable as possible. But these projects, unfortunately, we had some discussions with our engineers and with our superintendent of sewers, and it seems like these are the projects that we really can't put off. It would be detrimental if we did so.
Well, this council has spoke at length, and I know the administrator has too, in regards to what we need to get done, and this is one of those, like Ferry Road, that absolutely needs to get done and continues, because it's more expensive not to fix it, both in fees and from the state and federal, or most importantly, is that's not what we do in Bristol. So,
Right.
What's the council's pleasure?
Make a motion. Make a motion that the council adopts this borrowing resolution as specified and presented to this council.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Item I2, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is an executive session matter, which I'm assuming the council wishes to take up at the conclusion of the public agenda.
Yes.
The next item is item I3, and this is from the Economic Development Coordinator. Request council consideration to appropriate certain funds for the 2018 Black Ships Festival.
So, as far as I know, very few people may be familiar with you, Chris. So, I'm going to refer this to the administrator first to introduce our new economic development coordinator.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Chris Vitale rose to the top of a series of interviews we had for the position of economic development coordinator. Chris has a master's degree in strategic planning. He has a work history in marketing, and so far he's helping us with our media outreach and getting the good work that we're doing out to the public. So he's been instrumental. Actually, during the storm, he helped me quite a bit. He went to Roger Williams University for his undergraduate degree, so he knows the town, and I have very high expectations, and I know he's going to do a fine job. So he's one of his first projects was he's been working with members of the Japan America Society and also the Black Ships Festival Committee, and he's working on bringing that festival to Bristol. So he's going to tell you a little bit about it, and he's brought some speakers that are going to make some brief remarks to try to explain what the connection is between the Japanese Society and the town of Bristol. So,
Great. We welcome you, Chris. We have high expectations. I wish you luck. I'm kidding. I think you're going to do a great job. So.
Thank you so much. I'll make sure it's on. And thank you, Steve. This year, Bristol has the unique opportunity to host the 35th Annual Black Ships Festival. The Black Ships Festival honors the achievement of Rhode Island native Matthew Perry, who succeeded in creating the first trade treaty between the United States and Japan. Some of the festival events include arts and crafts, martial art demonstrations, traditional tea ceremony, and a formal gala. In previous years, this festival has been held in Newport, where visitors spent an average of $191 per day on things like food, entertainment, retail, and transportation. The Black Ships Festival would be held during the third weekend of July, which would be just after our 4th of July celebration has ended. By approving this appropriations request for the Black Ships Festival, we'd be tackling a major goal outlined in our town's 2016 comprehensive study, which advised the town to look for ways to extend our destination season and diversify our offerings. At this time, I'd like to have Patrick Conley come up and just speak a little bit on the relationship between Japan and Bristol.
Welcome, Mr. Connolly.
Thank you, members of the council. I'm on the executive committee of the Japan-America Society, and as Chris mentioned, it had been traditional to hold this event in Newport since its inception. But it's staged by the Japan-America Society of Rhode Island, and therefore can choose the site that it wishes, subject, of course, to the approval of the community. And there has been a little bit of a difficulty between our President, Spencer Viner, and the honorary ceremonial mayor of Newport. That friction, in a way, led me to suggest that maybe we ought not to have it in Newport, that it should come to Bristol, because it's the most patriotic town, as all of you know. I feel that Bristol is well equipped to handle a historical event or observance such as this type. When I was head of the U.S. Constitution Council back in 1987, brought the Magna Carta here, and it was a wonderful success. Mary Perella was on the bicentennial of the Constitution and Bill of Rights Foundation with me, and we brought the Bill of Rights here in 1991. And once again, people raved. Bristol was the smallest town to accommodate those nationally traveling exhibits, and the U.S. Constitution Council got feedback as to how well Bristol accommodated those activities. And as a result of somewhat of an impasse with Newport, I talked to Steve Contenti and suggested that the Black Ships come here. There are some connections between the Black Ships Festival and the Japan-America Society in Bristol. Back about 25 years ago, Halsey Arasoff, Mary Perella, and I participated in a ceremony at Linden Place. I'd come across a scrapbook of condolences given to United States Senator LeBaron Colt, who was the chairman of the Senate Committee on Immigration. Immigration has always been a problem, and back in 1924 it was a problem. And one of the aspects of that restrictive immigration law, which discriminated against Southern and Eastern Europeans, Italians, for example, and Greeks, but it also had a profound discrimination against Japanese. And it had a provision in it which made Japan enraged, because it listed Japanese as aliens ineligible for citizenship. And Colt fought against that discrimination, but yet he fought unsuccessfully, and the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1924 became law. Colt died a few months later, and there was an outpouring of support from Italy, from Greece, and particularly from Japan for the humanitarian position that he had taken on our immigration law. And I came across the scrapbook. I was a used and rare book dealer at the time, and I found it up in Boston, donated it to Linden Place, and we had a very nice ceremony there. And the Japanese delegation, Japanese consul and other dignitaries from Japan came to Linden Place as we made this presentation, and they came in honor of LeBaron Colt. Something like that could be replicated. We also have the Columban Fathers here in town. Columban Fathers missionary group, very active in the Far East, including Japan. I've talked to Father Berger about this. He's quite excited about the coming of the potential arrival of the Black Ships here. As a matter of fact, we have a large Portuguese population in Rhode Island. I'm not, and particularly in Bristol. And I'm not telling anybody something they don't know here, but maybe they don't know that in 1547, the greatest of the Catholic missionaries, St. Francis Xavier, Portuguese, came to Japan and opened up the Christian missions in Japan. So you've got a kind of a Portuguese connection with Japan. And there are a number of other connections that one could establish that I think would make Bristol a very, very fine setting for this very cultural event that is held annually. There'll be representatives coming in from Japan to participate. It's always well attended in Newport, and Bristol being a port town, natural, I think, for this type of observance. There might even be a Japanese destroyer. They had one in Newport last year. Sometimes we have the military vessels come in for the 4th of July. Might even be able to do something like that this year as well. Things are pretty much open at this time, but there's a standard proposal, a standard format that the Black Ships Festival runs every year.
Thank you very much, Dr. Conley, for those words and that background and history.
I just find this like fascinating in the sense that when I first saw this on the agenda, I assumed it was an activity or two of the Black Ships Festival, but it's the entire festival to come here. And so I'm not sure of everything that involves. I just know that it has been, like, when we've sent kids on a field trip to Newport and it happens to be that weekend, sometimes there's like sumo wrestling or other things going on that they are able to take advantage of, you know. So some of the ideas of where the things would take place, it'd be all over town, for example, different activities, like in the parks downtown or...
Yeah, so, well, first off, thank you, Dr. Conley, for speaking on behalf of the Black Ships Festival. It's a weekend festival. There are several different activities. The majority of those activities would be taking place right in downtown Bristol. The final location is being determined right now as to either the town commons or Independence Park as potential locations for the festival, just for walkability, visibility. I think it would be beneficial to have it at one of those two locations. As for some of the events that have happened and are being planned here for the 2018 Black Ships Festival, we do have Eric Schweibens here, who is the Vice President of the Japan American Society of Rhode Island, and he can answer a couple of those questions as to some of the events that will be happening.
There's big fireworks displays, isn't there?
Good evening.
Welcome.
Members of the Town Council, thank you very much. I can't help but say I'm also a Roger Williams University Law School graduate from the class of 1998. I've been in Washington, D.C. for 20 years. My wife and I actually just moved back to Newport, and so we're really proud. I'm very proud to be here before you in this context. But to tell you that I've had the good fortune of being associated with this organization, and I can tell you from my experience as a patent attorney, I travel to Japan quite often, actually still, and this is a very big deal, not just in the United States and here in Newport, but it brings a lot of people and interest from the Boston area and other areas of the country. I just had the pleasure of attending a meeting with the Consul General in Boston recently, and it was amazing to see all these other Japan-American societies across New England, and by far the Japan-American Society of Rhode Island is sort of top-notch compared to these other organizations. There's a lot of admiration for what we've been able to do in terms of working with the community in Newport. And one of the things that I wanted to point out that wasn't mentioned was just this Matthew C. Perry initiative that our organization has sponsored and put together to fundraise and cultural exchange, to send kids to Japan and then do cultural exchange with children coming from Japan as well. And so that's one of the things that our organization is trying to raise money for, is to sort of get these sort of other educational programs going. So beyond the economic interest and people coming from outside the United States, and also the state of Rhode Island sort of getting more interest in Japanese-related issues, it also helps us with one of our major goals, which is to try to do some cultural exchanges and raise awareness, given the world issues that we have right now going on in the Far East, about the partnership, the very special relationship that the United States has with Japan, and in particular the state of Rhode Island. So I wanted to just touch on a few other activities that would occur, and if you have any questions, please let me know. But we had last year we had the pleasure of having some sword techniques of people coming and showing martial arts sort of exercises, both from the Japanese military, as Dr. Connolly mentioned, that were present. Last year we had a very special visit of the Rear Admiral Koji Manabe, and they were bringing up 2 training squadron vessels, which was pretty exciting to have that in Newport Harbor. We actually had a chance, some of the members got a chance to go on the ships and that have them participate in the festival in terms of the martial arts celebrations, helping us with calligraphy, some of the taiko drums. If you've ever been to any of these festivals, you've seen that. Those are some of the the activities that we have, as well as in general information as it relates to, again, the organization and some of the other sponsors that we have for the gala, including the Toto company that you're probably familiar with that makes toilets, and also Teray Plastics, which is a Rhode Island company that is a regular sponsor of the gala and the Black Ships Festival in general. So having, again, that exposure of the companies that are involved, and also having the exposure with some of the media attention we've gotten, and again, fundraising for our educational goals is all sort of wrapped up in some of the things that we're trying to do.
Well,
So.
sorry, go ahead,
No,
Mary.
go ahead.
No, I'll say first, Chris, welcome, and I agree with you. I think we do need to expand the calendar of events in Bristol. We've talked about it, and I think this would be a nice fit because we are a cultural destination, and this is a cultural event, so I think it fits nicely into what we're trying to project. I just had a question in regards to a list of events in regards. What's the duration? Does it start on a Friday and the boats roll in and then there's a gala? Can you sort of take me through the schedule of events of what happens?
Yeah, I can
Thanks.
speak to that. Thank you.
All right, yep.
Thank you, Eric.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before me, I have a draft schedule of the events here for the 2018. It would be a weekend festival, and I can provide you guys with a copy of this as well.
All right, thanks.
Here, and I apologize, I didn't get one to you here sooner.
It's okay.
So this is a weekend festival, so it would unofficially begin the Thursday of July 12th, and would go through Sunday, which would be the 15th. So the Friday would include opening ceremonies. They would have a reception for the visiting Japanese delegation, as well as a sushi sale that would be departing out of Newport, and that's something that they have set up separately with a third party. The rest of that opening festival activities would be taking place right here in Bristol, either at the Town Commons, and I know there's discussion of bringing Roger Williams in with that. Saturday is where the bulk of the festival would take place, and as Eric mentioned, there would be lost sword techniques, art and crafts tents, sushi making demonstrations, calligraphy demonstrations, tea ceremony, and all of that would be taking place at the same time from about 10 to 4. So throughout the day, because it is a weekend, there's going to be people walking around. Businesses will be open because it is during the day on the weekend. And just based on the two proposed locations, I think it would be very good. It would get very good visibility for people coming into Bristol on the summer weekend. So their marquee event is the Gala, which would be taking place that evening at 6:30. The proposed location is Roger Williams University. I had the opportunity to speak with the president of the society, Spencer Viner. Unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight, but he did, discuss his interest in really making sure that as many of the events could be held here in Bristol. One of the things he mentioned was the discussion of having it in the Global Heritage Hall on the campus, and then setting up a tent in the back. He's expressed interest in giving that business for the tent rental to someone here in Bristol, so that money that they're using on the expenditures for the festival are being pumped right back here into the town. So that would be happening at 6:30. It is a ticketed event, however, it does garner several hundred people of attendance, so it would definitely be a nice event to attend to. Here on Sunday, they have their memorial ceremony, and that is at the Matthew Perry grave site down in Newport. That's in the morning. After that, they would come back up here for a farewell potluck, and that would just be an informal event for the members involved in making the festival happen. So that's a little bit of a rundown.
I just want to point out one thing in your planning, and that is, you said the Sunday's the 15th. I'm guessing that's the Mount Carmel celebration. So there'll be a big tent on the Common, and that will be the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel Festival. Will be that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think you need to double check the dates, but it's the 16th, so I'm sure it's that weekend.
It's always around the 16th, so I would imagine that's the weekend.
So I do know that Halsey Herreshoff does have a very good relationship with the society, and I believe he has put his tent up at the museum. He's made that available for this
Yeah.
pop-up reception.
Yeah, I'm just talking about just in terms of, like, when you were saying either going to be downtown or on the Common. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that other tent will already be up, and there'll be a lot going on there. So you just want to coordinate those events, that's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, excuse me for sounding like, I don't really want to say this, but we're not being leveraged like the Paw Sox to get it back to Newport, are we?
No, I think it will. I think it will stay here. Quite frankly, I was very anxious to have it move here. We've talked to a number of the members of the board, Eric Spencer Viner, and he's very excited to be here in Bristol. In fact, we're so excited. I'm the president of the Heritage Harbor Foundation, and we're going to match whatever the money that the city or the town puts up. We'll match it. So we'll be giving a grant every year for the event while it's here through the Heritage Harbor Foundation.
Excellent.
Very exciting.
Is the ask of $2,500 from the town of Bristol, is that, the event coming here dependent on that payment?
Maybe I can answer that. The contribution from the city of Newport was $5,000. The Black Ships Festival Committee is asking us for the same amount of money, $5,000. The reason for the funding is to pay for some of their upfront expenses to bring the festival here. We think, looking at it, it's going to be a good return. I think from what we've seen in Newport, that it does bring dignitaries in from Japan, brings dignitaries in from the consul in Boston. I did attend an event this summer relating to it, and that's what I observed myself. So I think we'll have a good return on the investment, but we're asking for $2,500 from the town council to get the commitment, and so that we can continue negotiations. The actual logistics really haven't been ironed out yet. Originally, they were planning on coming the 27th of July. But we're looking at most likely to be Independence Park for the central location of the events. Once we get the commitment from the council, the $2,500, we can continue the negotiations and move forward, try to get some matching funds. If we can't reach that $5,000, we may use some money from community development, our tourism line, which is, from what I understand, that's what it's there for. It's a return. We're looking for a return on our investment, and I'm pretty confident we're going to get it. We'll work closely with the Merchants Association, Explore Bristol, and we'll try to publicize this as much as we can.
So Explore Bristol has been engaged in conversations with us?
Yes, yeah.
And the tourism partnership that we have has been met and discussed this and looked at it relating to other priorities that it has and commitments that they've made.
I've met with Mike. I've spoken with Mike Burns. He had Jeff Hirsch attend one of our meetings, and they're not here tonight, but they're in full support of it.
So,
I think it's absolutely worthy of the town's support and commitment to having it come here regarding a contribution and payment. It just seems too early as well, whereas we're just learning of the agenda now, and I think that our support of the event to come to the town, I think, is important, and I'm all for that this evening, but I still think that allocating dollars without even understanding what the full budget of the event is, what the itinerary of the event is, what other additional costs, public safety there may be, fire, traffic blocking off, what other commitments financially from the town that are going to be required to run this event. I just think we should wait to understand a little bit more what the whole budget is for the event, what the economic impact is, which no doubt there will be in a positive sense, but I just don't think we should get out front with allocating the dollars yet until we have more information on the entire event.
But if they need the money to move forward in the commitment, to show the commitment, then I don't know if we really have an option.
So I guess that was my original question was, is our $2,500, is that the deciding factor on whether the event will come or not?
Money talks. So it does show that once we commit funding to it, we're serious about it. It's now we would reimburse. So we're not just going to give a blank check of $2,500 or $5,000. we will look at the invoices, and we have a rough outline already what the expenses may be. But that was from what we understand, and Director Williamson contacted Newport, that was the total amount. It was $5,000. That's what the city of Newport contributed. That's how much, the most that I would recommend that we contribute to it also.
It sounds similar to an event, maybe, hopefully, with an impact of the Bristol Motor Car Festival, and I'm wondering what the town contributes towards that festival.
Well, I would imagine that comes out of Explore Bristol on the line item of the tourism for that event.
It does, thank
This
you.
event is way
If I
bigger
could
than
just
that.
speak to that, we have, the Tourism Partnership has allocated some of the funding that the council gives them for the British Motor Car Festival. And I don't recall exactly how much, but it is, it's in the neighborhood of a couple $1,000s.
So could this funding come, the ask come from the same source that the town allocates within its budget instead of adding this to what we've already allocated towards events like this, and maybe pull it from that budget that we've already allocated funds to?
So we did look at it with the Tourism Partnership. I did have a meeting with them a couple months back when this first came about, and with what we have set aside for the programming and the marketing, we had a little bit of room in that budget. I think I'm sorry I didn't bring my letter tonight, but I think we had said we could give $2,000 towards this, but that was all.
So $2,000 for funds that we've already allocated for this type of purposes, and so the ask tonight is for not to use that $2,000, but to leave that $2,000, but spend another $2,500 separate?
I think it's in concert. So said another way, it would be, it's all from the town. It's all town dollars, but some of it was budgeted already for tourism, which would be, I'm going to use Diane's number and say 2,000, and the additional ask of 2,500 and come from council authorization. So speaking to that point, I did reach out to Julie earlier today and said, what did she believe the most appropriate way was to do this? This is 2019 budgeting, if you will, so 18-19 as opposed to this current budget. We currently have in council contingency approximately, after committed dollars, about $10,000 currently, after everything else committed. So it can come from that. Julie spoke about potentially just budgeting it for our 18-19 year, or we can just take it out of council contingency. At the end of the day, it's still town dollars. It's still spending money if we see inappropriate. The benefit of the council contingency is that it's there for things like this, and there's more flexibility. But because we're coming up into a new budget year, we could budget for it. But regardless, it's still spending that money if we all believe it's appropriate to fund this. I think the administrator brought up a particularly good point, which was that this is not writing a check. This is reimbursing for expenses that we'll mutually agree upon before that happens. So it won't be for just anything, and nobody's suggesting it would be anyway. So it would be returning funds, or reimbursing funds after they're being spent with a receipt. So this is, to me, that sounded extremely appropriate, and I like the way that is. I also think that this is another opportunity that the town, and hats off to the administrator, hats off to Dr. Connolly, hats to Eric, I'm sorry, your last name again? Schweivens, that's probably why I remembered Eric. I'm going to get that. Thank you for sharing this information. I think this is absolutely appropriate to go in, I don't want to say a different direction, because we have a lot of ethnic history here, and this is just another opportunity to expand upon what we have is wonderful. It would be great if it was in August, and maybe that can happen next year, and we can push it out. I'm looking at the chief thinking, man, boy, is that a long week for 4th of July, and then to come back in for this, too. So, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's a gift horse, because we are spending dollars here, but I think this is an opportunity. And again, I'm going to look at the chief here. I think you call it an after-action report. So we'll look at this afterwards and say, is this beneficial? Did this work out well? Is there something that we should be doing differently? And if it is not beneficial, then we shake hands and we say, thank you for the opportunity. It didn't work out. Hopefully, we shake hands and say, we'll see you next year around August, right? August? Yeah, okay. Excellent. I don't know what else we want to talk about.
So, a lot of good points from my colleagues, such as we are very busy in the summer. We have events like Mount Carmel, Columbian Fathers. We have to have a concern of public safety, traffic patterns. One of my concerns is we're in preliminary talks with some state projects. Are we in the clear for that week before those take place, because that would be paramount of any state project taking place that would hinder our traffic flow. Is that weekend good?
I'm not aware of anything, right? Are you?
Well, there'll be construction on Medicum Avenue, but...
Not on Hope Street?
No, not on Hope Street. No.
Okay,
Not
as
that
long-
I know. No.
Okay, as long as, because I know we have preliminary talks with the state, I want to make sure that, other than our events, we have to coordinate with our projects with the state that are going on, because it'll impact traffic, and we have to be cognizant of that, along with the public safety and whatnot. So as long as that's all right, I'm a big supporter of this, but I'm thinking it's cultural, it's historic. You're alumni of Roger Williams, and I know right about that round of grants that come from Roger Williams. I think $2,500 if you pursue to maybe ask Roger Williams when they for the grant proposals. A lot of them are $2,500, $5,000. I think this would be a great sponsorship with our relationship with Roger Williams to offset the cost out of contingency and on the tax dollars. And I think they would be probably ecstatic to contribute in a manner like that in that relationship with our grant program with them to sponsor this going forward. So that's, I would work on that. So that's just an idea of thinking outside the box of funding mechanisms that we can do.
So in the meantime, however, I think it's a great opportunity. The newspaper, everything is filled with Black Ships Festival. Like, you read about it everywhere, you hear about it, and I think that this opportunity to come here, I think we should just jump on it, and I think if that means that we need to be able to commit that money right now, I'm just going to make a motion that we appropriate the $2,500 from council contingency to move forward on the Black Ships Festival coming to Bristol. And then if we're able to find that money from another source, we can reimburse ourselves, or as you said, as Steve said, we may end up needing the other $2,500 as well. So
I'll second the motion.
And for discussion, this council and even for the residents to publicly advertise and coordinate with the administration and all the departments and the state with this. This is a big, I anticipate this being a big event for Bristol, for all parties involved. But all the information and the communication should be all together on this. So any new pieces that come forward, I think we all need to be on board.
I just want to make sure that we don't have any misconception here. They call it the Black Ships Festival, and there's a historical reason for that, but there won't actually be 12 ships coming into Bristol. You may see the Oliver Hazard Perry. You may see we're going to try to get a visiting Japanese Self-Defense Force naval ship in the harbor. That's our goal. We would like to see this built up to something larger. But there aren't actually black ships that come anymore. It's a festival.
right. I do agree with the chairman on the moving towards August, because it's all of a sudden, every weekend, there's multiple things to do in July, and then there's nothing in August.
Right.
So, nothing to look forward to. There's no
also,
church festivals, there's no, great food around, there's nothing.
And as
plenty in restaurants, but, out there in the various events.
As Ed and Mary said, is that there is another event that weekend, and not only do we want to make sure it works, but we also don't want to detract from an event that has been very and continues to be extremely important to this community every year. Plus, we only have so much manpower. Sorry, Chief, I'm going to look at you again, and there's only so many officers to be around, and as Councilman Tiska pointed out, there's dollars that are connected to this that are not being appropriated right now. So it's something that we need to keep in mind, but I do believe that it is very appropriate that we take the next step. So is there any other discussion before we vote?
Yeah, I just want to again reinforce the fact that I think this is a good thing for the town of Bristol, but it seems from my seat on the council here where we have no agenda, no itinerary. I'm basing it on what I've seen in advertisements before in Newport. No budget, no proposal for expenditures, no proposal for what it's going to cost public safety-wise. So I think it's premature to allocate the dollars, not premature to support the event coming here. But again, I think it's premature to expend the dollars unless we use funds that we've already budgeted that are within the tourism bucket. We either reprioritize or reduce the amount that we allocate until we have a better understanding about the financial cost for this town.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm opposed.
Thank you. Good luck. Look forward to seeing you again and again in August. Okay, great. Subliminal right there.
Anytime this year, but in August.
The next item is that the town administrator provides wishes the council to have a presentation by Attorney Eva Mancuso regarding prescription opiates.
Thank you. Any place in particular?
Right at the podium, if you would.
Oh, great. I didn't even see it.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, members of the council, thank you for having me here today. My name is Eva Mancuso, and I've been a practicing attorney in Rhode Island for the last 35 years. And as such, over the last maybe 15 to 20 years, I've worked with a consortium of lawyers nationally on public health issues and public involvement issues. And so from time to time, they've called me to say, what do you think about this issue or that issue? And about 6 months ago, almost 8 months ago now, they discussed with me opiate litigation and what they're doing nationally on the opiate issue. And so I sat down with Lieutenant Governor McKee, knowing that he had a consortium of meetings with mayors and relationships with mayors and town managers to put together a presentation to the town managers. And I brought in counsel from our national council that came in and talked about the litigation. And that has now spurned into individual meetings with councils like yourself throughout the state to ask them to retain us for the purposes of filing a lawsuit on behalf of the town against the three major opiate manufacturers and the distributors, the three big distributors and the opiate manufacturers. Let me explain to you just briefly what we're looking at. Today, we have an opiate problem in the state of Rhode Island. We have the opiate problem in Bristol, in Barrington, in Providence, and I can go on through all 39 cities and towns. And it's a problem that we have right across the country. So the consortium of lawyers are all national lawyers that are working together to go after, and 180 lawsuits have been filed throughout the country. And they're going after the three big distributors that have put these drugs in the hands of people that, A, shouldn't have them, and B, really to their own detriment, not knowing what happened. So we're filing suit because the pharmaceutical drug manufacturers and wholesale drug distributors have refused and failed to provide specific obligations to monitor, identify, report, and halt suspicious shipments of opioids. Very simply, in Congress in 1970, and if you watch the 60 Minutes show on this, the two experts that we have retained that are exclusive experts were the two DEA agents that testified. So if you saw it, I'm sorry about being duplicitous. But basically, the Congress in 1970 realized by passing a law that opiates were pretty potent. And what they did is they gave out 800 distributorships throughout the country. And what they said is the distributor's job was to make sure that if there was any uptake in a community at a certain percentage, if there was an additional uptake, they were supposed to sound the alarms. Well, instead of sounding the alarms, what they did is they colluded with the manufacturers so that they could take advantage of the fact as to which counties and which states were using more opiates and then direct to them. Now you say, well, why would they do that? Well, the three wholesale distributors with a combined annual revenue of $400 billion and profits in the billions of dollars, failed in their duties. And why? Because it's the almighty buck. That's why. These companies control 85% of the market for prescription opioids. the manufacturers had spent millions of dollars on promotional activities and materials that deny the risks. So a lot of the discussion that I've heard is, why aren't you going after the doctors? Why aren't you going after the people that prescribe the medication? Well, you know what? Opiates were sold to the people that do this work. They were sold as a bill of goods that, only 1% of the people get addicted. And the problem is that the truth was, and they knew the truth, was 40% were. So without getting into all of the details, we are looking for the town of Bristol to sign on to the litigation in your own right. It's not a class action. It's a multi-district litigation, which means the lawsuit would be brought, the town of Bristol versus the three large manufacturers and the other the three large distributors and all of the manufacturers that we're going against. I brought a copy of the complaint. It's 172 pages. I've spent a little time with your legal counsel in Barrington this week, and also have copies of the litigation, as well as sent out the fee agreement ahead of time so that you could see what we were working on. The lawsuit right now have been consolidated in the federal district in Ohio. The reason that I don't have my, I call my dream team with me, the lead counsel, is that everyone is in Ohio. They've had hearings yesterday and today, and the judge has set down January 31st as the next date to look at and start to look at the damages models. The damages models, which I just want to talk to briefly, is threefold. One, it's the past money that you've spent, so that it's the training your police officers and making sure you have Narcan in not only the police but also in the fire, making sure all of that's done. So your public safety costs and your health costs related to that. That's one, I call it a very small part of the damages, because really the damages are the future. We have to retrain an entire generation of people. And why do I say that? Because good people had turned to opioids at a time. One of my colleagues, his daughter, got involved with opioids as a result of a wisdom tooth problem and ended up spending 3 years in prison. You hear these stories all around the state, all around the country, that people started with prescription drugs and then ended up with criminal problems. So we have to retrain the people that have these criminal convictions now and bring them back into our workforce. That's a big part of it. And also we have to educate. We have to start by educating the youngest of our children that the drugs in mom and dad's medicine cabinet are just as potent as the heroin or fentanyl that are on the street, so that they understand the risks associated with this. So in a realizing it's late in the evening and giving you just a thumbnail of what we're doing, we're bringing the lawsuits on behalf of the individual cities and towns. And like I said, we've filed 180, and I'm poised to file the Rhode Island suits, certainly by the January 31st deadline, so that we're part of the litigation when it goes to the federal court. But also, what's positive about having it on behalf of the town of Bristol is that you will decide where the money is best spent, because the issues that you have in Bristol are different than the other cities and towns throughout Rhode Island and certainly throughout the country. So there's no one form of damages that's going to do what you all, as the town council members, are best seated to do, and that is to tell us what your needs are. So as far as the resources from the town, it would really only be whatever it takes for our team to come in to work with your public safety personnel, with your town manager, with your budget people, to figure out what the damage model is. There's no cost up front. There's no cost if we don't win. There's no legal fee if we don't win. So the proverbial situation where we want to have the opportunity to bring this on behalf of your town so that we can hold these manufacturers and distributors accountable for the problems that they have set up. I'm glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Attorney Mancuso, thank you.
You're welcome.
The administrator had shared this with me recently. Obviously, it's why it's on the agenda. This seems extremely appropriate. What I'd ask now is, our solicitor. I know I've spoken to you, Mike, but
Absolutely.
could you share your thoughts on this and what the next step is if we so choose to take the next step?
Absolutely. First of all, I agree that there's an upside to this if, in fact, the litigation is successful, and if it's not successful, there's no downside for the town. It's neutral. We've had conversations in other towns, as Eva has referenced, with regard to what could the potential downside be. And in my opinion, what it would be is the time of individuals such as the fire and police departments and the administrator. It would be their time to sit with the attorneys. They will come in and assist with gathering all the data, everything from electronic data to paper data, et cetera. So there's really no expense to the town other than the official's time. I've thoroughly reviewed the engagement letter, and what Ms. Mancuso represents is correct. If there's no recovery, there's no cost to the town of Bristol. No cost for stenographers, copying costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Only if there's a recovery will we share in the costs and expenses and the legal fees, and then there will be some amount, unguaranteed. We don't know what that might be. The case could settle, it may not settle. It could go to trial, it may not go to trial. We have no way of knowing or predicting how that will come out, which is why my focus was on what possible harm could be done. I think there's nothing but good that can come from this. So I would recommend that you authorize the hiring of special legal counsel and sign the engagement letter, and we'll see where we go with it.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Normally, when we get to see the engagement letter, I'm just going to go back across
Should be in your
to Councilman Tisker, is usually, the council can see something that, I just want to make sure that what we're making an obligation to, that there is no cost.
Sorry, I thought it was in your packets. Basically, it's pretty straightforward. It's like 2 pages, I believe. It basically says that you're hiring this firm to bring a suit on your behalf against these various defendants, the distributors and the manufacturers involved with the opioid pharmaceuticals. And it says in bold print that there will only be a fee if, in fact, there's an award of damages. It also says in bold print that there will be no expenses if there's no recovery.
And the fee would come from those monies.
From any damages.
So at the end,
that
it's not going to cost us even if there is a fee, because it's going to come from, yeah.
No.
I just want to make sure that,
That is, I assure you that is absolutely the case. The letter of representation states that in bold print.
It seems it's absolutely time well spent, regardless of the outcome and the time that it takes. I think it's very possible that that time could uncover other things that maybe we can look at to do to improve how we address this epidemic within our community. So I think this is one thing, but not the only thing that we should continue to do. Allocate resources if necessary to try to, as much as we can, address this epidemic. So thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
I agree with the councilman, because here in Bristol, we have been proactive with many groups related to either drugs or with our departments, and there are underlining other topics that might be revealing that we can help and address through this one cause itself. So.
Here's a couple questions.
And honestly, I think the town, we need to step on the right side of history here. Far too many people have died
You're right.
from opioids, and we need to take a hard line with these pharmaceutical companies. They need to understand that human lives are more important than the almighty buck. So I wasn't going to get personal, but long and the short of it, I've experienced this personally with my nephew right now is going through it. And so it's arrived at everybody's doorstep, I think, in some form. So I'm happy we're moving forward to take a stronger action against these pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, welcome, Eva. Nice
Thank
to
you.
have you in Bristol.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity, and how many communities so far do you think you'll have from Rhode Island?
We already have 9 because I've only been to 9 places so far, that have actually signed the agreements, like you've done and voted, and gone through the due diligence. There was no one that wasn't interested in getting involved with it. It's always all the details and making sure we go through the right due process so that, we don't, how would you feel if you woke up and you found out the town manager was talking about binding you, right? So I got to be careful with how many I'm going to say, but it's truly a situation. I'm just so proud to be involved in it. It's like you, Councilman, it touches every family, including my own. We've all been through some level of the prescription drugs. I'm not talking about what happens when you get involved with the illegal drugs, because that's what happens. So in Rhode Island, we have we've had 100% increase between 2011 and 2016 of deaths. 100%. And you know what? In terms of the usage part, opiate usage is down a little bit. You know why? Because they're going to what's happened, what's cheaper? Heroin and fentanyl. So your police chief will tell you that. So that's what's happening. Doctors are now not giving the prescriptions anymore and being educated as, by people like myself throughout the country and others talking about the issue. And you look at that, and so what's happened? Where can you always find it? You can always find it on the street. So that's the next thing, and that's the other part of it that we look at. The other thing that really resonates is the fact that good people end up. It knows no class, it knows no social group, it knows no profession. Like I said, my colleague's daughter had a wisdom tooth infected and started at age 15 that went downhill from there because of her proclivity to opioids and ended with 3 years in prison and a child born addicted to drugs that he and his wife are now raising as their own. So, and that's one little story from one little person, right? Every place I've gone, we've had the same conversation. So we're on it. Thank you.
Actually, I'll take that back. I would like this council, if we decide, and it sounds like we are, to take the next step here, to stay informed on your progress. How does that happen?
First of all, you are the plaintiffs, so you are the clients. So we stay involved by the next step will be I'm asking the Lieutenant Governor to put together everyone that has signed on by January 31st so that we can do a big announcement so that people in Rhode Island know what we're doing, first of all, and the second piece of that would be then to start working on the damages aspect for your town. So you'll expect, I call it the young guys and gals, the younger lawyers that come in that know all of the matrix and how to set the whole thing up, come in and work with your town officials so that we can say, what are Bristol's damages? What have they paid in these costs? And what is your vision for the future? So if you were going to get, a bucket of money to take care of this problem, and I say take care of because we know it's multidiscipline. So what's your thought as a council? How would you do it for you? And that's how we put it in. So you're very involved in it because the lawsuit will be the town of Bristol versus. It's not, it's not anybody else. It's all, that's why I'm here, because you all have to sign on to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is the periodic report provided by Alan Klepper of the Bristol County
Motion
Water
to receive and
Authority.
file.
Second.
There's a motion to receive and file. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And now we have the individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
Short meeting, short agenda items. Welcome, Chris. We have high expectations. I was joking earlier, but you have this council's support. We're hoping that a year from now there will be even that many more, maybe Black Ship festivals or whatever else going on. And honestly, as important, probably more important, is to enhance our relationships with our current businesses, improve those, and not that they're bad right now, but like Drew Bledsoe was a really good quarterback. Tom Brady might be a little bit better, right? So this is that next step that we're hoping for, and I think you're going to do a great job. Hats off to DPW. Hats off to the police department and fire department. We had a nasty snowstorm. I'm on the road all day. I'm in all kinds of communities, New Bedford and Taunton and South County, and everybody's good or bad by comparison. I can tell you that I can drive around Bristol. So other communities, not as much. So excellent job. There's a couple of stories. I'm not going to share them because there's too many, but I can tell you that I had residents reach out to me to give special thanks to our police department for helping with certain situations for people who were stuck here and there, for DPW to go back and, although they did an excellent job, to help a little bit here or there, and they did it without a complaint, and the residents were very appreciative of that, and we are very appreciative of that. Bristol Veterans Council just installed their new officers for 2018. New president is Wally Coelho. The outgoing president is Joe Denise. Did a great job. Carl Antonovich is the new vice president. Carl was sick recently and was in the hospital, and he's recovering fine. But he's a big part of that organization. He adds a lot, and the men and women there missed him while he's not there, but he'll be back soon. The new junior vice president is Armin Pereira, chaplain Richard Enos, officer of the day is David Enos, treasurer is Larry Matika, and the secretary is Joe Denise. So he went to the secretary's position. So congratulations to all of them. They are a big part of Bristol, and one of my favorite parts is the wreath laying that happens on our ward garden. I love it. So simple, but so heartwarming. I think it's just a wonderful event. I want to leave you with, we had recently, this council made the decision to try a test with King Philip Avenue with no parking. We had a resident ask us, they were having a parking issue, and we're trying, I should say, a test down there. And that test was to put no parking, and I won't go into the particulars right now because I think we're all familiar with it. I know I have, and maybe you have too, have had a few residents reach out to you kind of frustrated with how that went down. And what I mean by that is we have a really good system when we pass an ordinance. It's a first reading. We have a second reading with opportunity for the public to speak and share their thoughts, whether positive or negative on it. In this instance, I really believe that a test was really a great way to do this. And in the future, I think testing, not necessarily in this area, but in other areas, makes a lot of sense. But in speaking with the police chief, when the police department would go down and point out that somebody was parked incorrectly, they didn't give a ticket. They would put a note on the car and say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, we ask that you move your car. And I agree with that completely. But I do believe the onus was on this council to better share the information with the residents down there. And I think that for that, I apologize. I think we could have done a better job. And in the future, I think that if we decide that we do a test someplace else to see if it makes sense. Now, if I remind everybody, when we change or we make a new ordinance, it's a whole process and there's a cost involved in that, recording it. So I think the test actually has a lot of sense there, plus making sure it actually works. But we need to make sure that residents know what's going on. I'd like to have this on our next agenda. I know that we'd ask for police, fire, DPW, and administrator input on how is it working. So I'd like this on our next agenda to tell us, how is it working? Is it appropriate? Does it make sense? Should we continue, or should we look at something else? So I said I was going to be short. That really wasn't short. I'm sorry. But good night, everybody.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah, I don't mean to sound redundant, but long and the short of it, my hat's off to the town administrator, chief of police, chief of fire, DPW, all the departments that were involved in the last blizzard. Countless residents came up to me, and they were very, very pleased with how everything was processed, and the snow was moved, and they felt safe moving around town. And to the town administrator, they really, feedback that I got, they really enjoyed the use of technology, your social media use. My mother was extremely happy to get a phone call from you. So long and the short of it, all together, working as a team, it seemed to work out very, very well. So I wanted to let you know that. Finally, I just wanted to let everybody know there's e-waste recycling days are back. This Saturday, January 13th, Bristol Transfer Center, Midturn Road, 8 a.m. to 12 noon. It will be e-waste. So again, what is e-waste? Really pretty much anything with a plug. But if you want to look into more details, go to www.indiecycle.com, and they'll give you more information on that e-waste. But it's free. So head up there, 8 a.m. to noon this Saturday, or if you can't make it, Saturday, March 10th. And hope you have a great weekend. Have a good night. Thank you.
Mr. Tiska.
Thank you. Again, I want to also echo the chairman's comments about King Philip Ave. I think maybe part of that review, is it possible to send the neighbors some notices directly in that area on that street to make them aware that we're going to be discussing this at the next council meeting so that they can provide some feedback too? Maybe there's some neighbors that have been affected in a positive manner, but maybe there's some that, clearly there are some that have spoken with me that aren't happy about it. So,
Agreed.
And I don't that, I know it's a slippery slope going down, informing everyone with the public notice when there's a parking spot being removed from the neighborhood, but maybe that's a measure we should consider to make sure that people have the opportunity to express their concern.
Well, I would say that the ordinance process does allow for that normally.
It does.
Yes, it would. The difference here was that this was an experiment.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the council decides after hearing from administration that it wishes to go forward with an ordinance, then obviously there will be the notice that we would normally provide, which is detailed notice that appears in the newspaper that this is going to happen.
What's good is that it's working, and it's very possible that we can very easily undo what has been done, correct?
Absolutely.
So, good. So the other topic I have is wanted to just start a discussion around residents in our community who have reached an age that allows them to claim themselves as seniors. There's some absolutely fantastic things going on in this community relating to services for our seniors. I think that we have a comprehensive plan that talks about how we protect open space and land in this community, but I'm not aware of a similar effort and a similar plan on how we as a community can protect our seniors. We spend, on the bookends of our community, young people and students and the seniors, we spend millions of dollars on youth and education. We spend thousands of dollars on our seniors. And so I think that it's time that we as a council consider maybe having a workshop or at least discuss a process where we can identify what the needs are. And I think that's where it starts. We get input from various service providers, seniors themselves, residents who aren't seniors yet but will be. What will their needs be when they're retired and in our community? Possibly very different than what they are today. Maybe there's an opportunity to engage Roger Williams in their social services studies department. I think engaging the high school, working with the town of Warren, I believe that by creating a vision around what our needs are, identifying the needs, creating a vision about how we meet those needs, what resources are needed, and how we connect the great services that are going on now between the Benjamin Church Senior Center, St. Elizabeth's, Franklin Court, homebound seniors. I think if we have a overall strategy, we could be much more effective in putting the resources, both people and dollars, in place to ensure that I think what is one of the most important populations within our community is served correctly. Again, we're doing some great things, but I do think that we need a plan that looks to the future, that identifies needs. Is the senior center that we have sufficient? At the same point, is it even necessary? I think we have to look at what the services that are going to be needed by our seniors today and in the future are. We put together a plan and start allocating resources accordingly. So with that, I'd like to propose that we start a dialogue, a process about gathering stakeholders around serving our senior populations, including seniors, and do a needs analysis about what we need to do to make this one of the greatest places to grow old.
Thank you.
Ms. Perella.
Thank you. Well, a couple of things, and I'll say ditto to some of my colleagues' points on in relation to the storm. I mean, Steve, your phone calls and comments and the way you reached out to people was very well received. Certainly everyone who was shoveling and plowing, and all of our, first line responders, DPW, police, fire, rescue is amazing. It was very, very, very cold. There were lots of frozen pipes, and I think we had like a water main break, if I'm not mistaken, maybe more than one, but one right on State Street. We had the gas main break, and there's been a lot going on. I also wanted to do a shout out to the utility workers working on those, because I know the gas line, it was, I think they got there maybe like around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and they were there to probably like 8 or 9 in the morning. Very, very, very cold out. And then they were back again last night to do some more work. And I know that went on, I don't know what time they got there. I saw them at 6. And that was on good most of the night as well. So everybody has to be out there doing whatever it is that they do to fix these problems in any kind of weather extremes, including our own police and fire who are out there with them. So I just want to thank everyone for all of that. It is it's a monumental task. Certainly even all of the oil delivery and everyone else, all the technicians, everybody's been out just working nonstop to keep people in their homes and with heat on and so forth. I think it's been a real challenge, and that is something that no matter where you are, but certainly with aging infrastructure, it really shows what can happen. The other question I just have, and I'm sorry, this sort of just came up, Chief DeMello, this is for you. If you could either, maybe you can talk to it now, or if you could talk to it in the next meeting. The policy in relation to rescue calls and insurance payments. My understanding was that no one would be balance billed, for example. So there's a situation that is interesting because there's so many people sick. Obviously, if you saw the paper, they called out all three emergency rooms called out in the same morning because they were diverting because there were so many people, and that the health department had to order them back open. So there was a situation where Bristol Rescue was out of town and Alert was out of town. So Warren was called in as, I would say, backup, and the person then received a bill, and no one is covering that. My sense is that they should not be having to worry about the bill because it would be in relation to the Bristol service, correct?
Yes, so if anybody runs across that problem and they get an actual bill, sometimes that happens with mutual aid service. They
Right.
can contact our office, and we usually work with them and straighten that out.
Okay.
Because Medicare law requires that either you bill or you don't.
Okay.
We can't make any agreements with other towns and stuff like that. It's one way or the other. But generally, what we'll do is in our revenue process, we'll cover that and take care of that stuff. So anytime you run into any issues with billing related to ambulance transport, just direct them to our office, and 99 out of 100 times we take care of it.
Well, that's what I thought, and so I mean, I could have called you. It only came up the other day, so I didn't actually have a chance today to call you. But I think it's better for you to just not talk about it here, so people know that situation and be able to just contact your office for that. So, and I knew that's what it was. It had to be the mutual aid situation. So, okay, that is it. That's it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stewart.
So I agree with Councilman Tisker. I think my administrator can testify my conversation with him last week on the same idea towards the end of last year. Is I've been doing investigating with some proposals from in the past, and in the past, congratulations to a past colleague on this council, Kathleen Bazinet, who retired from the East Bay Community Development Corporation, which serves in tandem with Franklin Court, another faction of our senior community throughout Bristol. And there was proposals in the past, Councilman, for a Board of Elderly Affairs that involves a lot of things, and we've been through a lot of changes. I noticed a lot of representation from the Senior Center here, thank you. And with those changes, such as Diane Medeiros taking over Kathy's spot, a new senior director, discussions with our police department, the coordination with the new ordinance with our recreation department, So we've been holding back because we need all the parties that you mentioned, Councilman, to come to the table together with the administration and the departments and all the organizations of the key players for our seniors that represent them, so we can form that plan that your suggestion that I proposed at the end of last year to go forward with a vision in the community, because it is a vital. But I like your idea of the school, Roger Williams. So all that information I look forward to, because I said to Steve that we have to set up that workshop now that all the players are in their position. So I commend you for saying that. I commend the departments and Department of Public Works for this past storm, and the administration. I thank the community for their understanding throughout the storm. I would just ask, Mr. Administrator, that you provide this council with evaluation on the aftermath of a storm like that, so we can always, I always say this like the last storm, anything that we could do better, we want to do for on behalf of our residents. And with that, Happy New Year. We have budget coming up. We just did a first reading for a fireman ordinance for a tax abatement. We had the military in front of us for a tax abatement. There's been discussions with our seniors, what can we do for a tax abatement? We have our school funding that we're going to have a joint finance committee meeting at the end of this month. We have a reevaluation that's going to be coming up this year. The reason why I'm going on and on and on is we do the best job we can, all of us together, and all of you out in the community, to make the best community possible, but also balancing the budget and addressing all the needs that come before the council. So I look forward to the new year and the challenges that we face. I thank everyone for coming out. I thank Mike Davis, Archie Martins, and everybody tuning in at home. Be safe with this winter. Thank you. And welcome, Chris.
Town Administrator, agenda items.
Thank you. Things should be melting next few days and into the weekend.
Melting or flooding?
Melting. And,
Melting quickly.
Well, yeah. DPW have been out throughout the week. They've been widening roads, clearing our sidewalks, clearing our storm drains. Last 2 days they're doing storm drains. They haven't gotten all of them yet. They'll continue the rest of the week, and when it's raining, they'll be out there, and they'll respond to any flooded areas. But other than that, good night. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, if I may. I do have some good news. Director Williamson, thank you. I asked you to remind me, too, so thank you.
Is it money?
Yes, it's money.
Oh, good.
It's
Go ahead,
money.
Diane, it's money. Go
It's
ahead.
money. It's the best kind of money, because it's
free money?
Free money.
We're big fans.
The town of Bristol was fortunate to secure a grant from the Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission it's a capital project grant. And Julie and I went yesterday to receive, we got a recognition from the governor as well. And it is for the completion of the exterior structural repairs to the Bristol Maritime Center. $150,000.
Wow.
If you will recall, when we did the project, we had some areas to fix that were not in the high priority, but needed to be done, and we were at the end of the budget, so we deferred those. The best part about this grant is that we can use all the money that we've already spent as pre-agreement match. So we'll be able to
finish
the building and check that
So it
box.
means we don't have to come up with money to spend this money.
Correct.
Excellent.
Public service announcement,
Yes.
repointing for masonry is very expensive.
Yes.
Thank you. Congratulations. Nice job.
The motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to 42465A5, lease of property, specifically with regard to solar project, the landfill, and on public buildings.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everyone. Good night.